Don't you love how the video starts with, oh, it says it's streaming now. And YouTube says it's still sending data. By the way, I noticed after I changed the frames per second capture rate, I don't seem to get errors on X anymore, so that seems to have solved that problem. We're live! Hi! Hi, BK! BK! Hi!
It's exciting to be here.
Yay! So we're starting
Yay.
our Bible study again. We'll see if we learn stuff. We try. Supposed to, let's see, we're starting on chapter 14. Abram rescues
Yeah.
Lot. I think I'll just go ahead and read the chapter and then we'll go back over the notes. I think that seems to have the best flow that we've tried so far.
Great.
So you ready?
I'm
And
ready.
can you read too? Cause not like I'm not asking you to read right now, but I'm still kind of recovering from that cold and I had a
Oh yeah,
coughing
I
fit
can
this
read.
morning.
Do you want me to read?
Well, if you want to read,
Adam?
sure. You could read you could read the verses and then I could read the notes.
Okay.
Do your eyes work?
No. My
Is this
eyes are old.
You know, I was born with old eyes. I needed glasses at the age of 14.
Yes,
That's
same.
horrible.
I think I
Doomed.
might have even been younger.
Oh, yeah? Well, I know
Um,
I had vision problems younger, but, like, it was at that point, 14, when they caught it. Because I always needed the front row in the classroom. Like, since, I don't know,
uh,
since I was
yeah.
little. Since they started teaching reading and writing and you had to actually see the shapes.
Yeah. All right. So you want me to go ahead and read this here?
Yeah! And I will scroll through when you
Ah,
get there.
you're better at reading out loud. I sound terrible, but I'll try it. Okay. So
Do
at the
it.
time when Amraphel was king of Shinar, Arioch king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of Goyim, these kings went to war against Bera king of Sodom, Bersha king of Gomorrah, Shinab king of Admah, and Shemember king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor. All of these latter kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is, the Dead Sea Valley. For 12 years they had been subject to Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled, sorry. They rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him and went out and defeated the Raphaites in Ashtaroth, Karnaim and Zuthites and Ham, the Emites and Shava, Carithium, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran and near the desert. And please forgive me because I'm probably not pronouncing anything correctly, but I'm just going to run through so you don't have to listen to me struggle. Because
I might have been laughing
it's
silently.
the
Right.
struggle is real. It's more
It is
painful to
real.
listen to someone stumble over the word than to just make up how it sounds. So then they turned back and went to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites who were living in Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor, marched out and drew up their battle lines in the valley of Siddim against the Kedemar king of Elam, Tidal king of Goyim, Amraphel king of Shinar, and Arioch king of Elasar. 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some of the men fell into them, and the rest fled into the hills. Oh, they fell into the tar pits.
Oh.
So the 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food, and then they went away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. A man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram and the Hebrew, or Abram the Hebrew, I'm sorry. Now, Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre and Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Anar, all of whom were allied with Abram. Ah! When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men. Oh, I thought it was like a group. The 318.
That's okay, we're noobs.
It was like some kind of like you
Mm.
know gang or something. So he called out the 318 trained men forward in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. Ooh, that's crazy. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, and together with the women and the other people. So he was badass. After Abram returned from defeating Keldamar and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Sheba, that is the king's valley. Then Mesheldek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. And he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, With raised hand I have sworn an oath to the Lord, God most high, creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept yeah, I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten and the share that belongs to the men who went with me, to Anar, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share.
Okay, that is all of chapter 14, where Abram rescues Lot. And the
Yeah, went
first
on
set
a
of,
mission.
yeah, he did. It's like it made me think of Mission Impossible.
I know, same. I'm like, this is an extraction mission. Awesome. Got all the
Yeah.
women out, got his lot and all his stuff out. Like, he wasn't playing.
And it kind of sounds like these were all like city states where you have like a almost like a metro or a large city of
Yeah,
some kind, and each one has their own little tribal ruler.
right.
Because that's a
That's
lot
what
of
it
kings
sounds
in
like.
one area. Yeah, it's like the game
They're like
Civilization,
mayors.
huh?
They're kind of, I mean, they're mayors, but just called
Yeah.
kings.
Well, they're not elected, and they rule
That's
over
true.
their little
True, 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 true.
cities. Absolutely, I'm guessing.
Right.
Okay, so the first set of notes is about verse 18 with the crazy name.
Yeah.
Uh, Melchizedek, king of Salem. I'm guessing it's Salem because we have Salem, New York, or something like that.
How did
Is
I
it?
call it? Melchizedek or something?
Malchizedek or something like that. Yeah, you took out a couple of syllables. It was funny.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Well, you asked me to read.
I
Like, what
appreciate
is
it.
she doing? Does she know what she's doing?
My throat
You're letting
appreciates
me to
it, so
read.
thank you.
Okay.
So,
I can't read.
neither can I, so now you get to suffer with me. Everybody has to suffer with me. And you now.
Yes.
So, the king of Salem. If we base our analysis solely on information from this chapter, Melchizedek is a city-state king of Canaanite,
Hmm.
Amorite, or Hurrian extraction, and apparently one of the chief petty kings of the region. His city, Salem, generally considered to be Jerusalem. Archaeological finds, though scant, attest to the fact that Jerusalem is settled at this period. The city is mentioned in extra biblical literature as early as the Egyptian execration texts from around 1900 BC. Melchizedek makes a brief appearance in Psalms, where the idealized Davidic king is identified as also having priestly credentials in the order of Melchizedek. Once we get to the intertestamental period, Melchizedek becomes a much more intriguing figure. The Hasmoneans, seeking to establish a messianic dimension to their rule in the 2nd century BC, justified their priestly royal prerogatives by reference to Melchizedek. This practice was continued by the Sadducees. Oh, that's a period. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, Melchizedek has become the subject of much speculative interpretation. He is depicted as a heavenly redeemer figure, a leader of the forces of light who brings release to captives and reigns during the Messianic age. He is the heavenly high priest to whom archangels make explanation ex ex it's not explanation expiation for the sins of ignorance of the righteous. When we get to Hebrews, all of this Jewish tradition is mixed into consideration of Melchizedek. The author of Hebrews is not drawing his information on Melchizedek solely from the Old Testament. He is also interacting with the traditions known to his audience. It is the Jewish profile of Melchizedek, not just the canonical profile, that informs his comparison. As a result, there is nothing in Hebrews or anywhere else to suggest that we need to believe that Melchizedek, in the context of the Genesis 14 chapter, was anything other than the Canaanite king he is depicted to be. The fact that he combined the roles of priest and king, as did many in the ancient world, in Jerusalem was sufficient to establish the precedent of royal priesthood in Jerusalem that was adopted by the Davidic dynasty and therefore came into the messianic profile. And we got another section that covers the bread and wine, which I think is in the same verse because it didn't say anything else. Yeah, so it's still in verse 18. It is unclear whether these are shared by all of Abram's men or just in council between Melchizedek and the victorious commanders. It would seem to be meager fare if the latter were the case. Abram's success has signaled the possibility of a major shift of power in the region, and it appears that Melchizedek is taking the opportunity of the army's return to explore what ambitions or loyalties Abram might have. It was common for a meal to be shared when treaty negotiations were being finalized, but generally meat was part of the meal as sacrifices were made in association with oaths to the respective deities. And now to explain God Most High. A translation of El Elyon, a compound divine name and title, El is well known as the chief Canaanite god in the Ugaritic and Phoenician literature, but it is sufficiently generic to use for any god, any high god. Though Hebrew regularly uses the plural form Elohim for the God of Israel, El is also sometimes used. Consequently, El could refer to either a Canaanite deity or to Abram's God. The epithet Elyon is used parallel to the Canaanite El, as well as of Baal. But El Elyon never occurs as a compound in Ugaritic texts. No evidence of Elyon as an independent deity is found until the writings of Philo, I guess, or Philo, Philo, 1st century AD. Since El Elyon can designate a Canaanite god, we have no reason to think of Melchizedek as a worshipper of Yahweh or even as a monotheistic. It is Abram who identifies El Elyon as Yahweh. So El Elyon sounds like it could be just a my primary god type reference. Interesting. The next topic covered is a tenth from verse 20, where Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Tithing, oh, I didn't know this. Tithing, or otherwise known as giving a tenth, is known in the ancient Near East and in the Old Testament in a variety of contexts. Evidence from the ancient Near East occurs as early as about 2000 BC, where the obligatory tithe is in goods given to the temples. In this period, there is also a reference to a tithe assessed by the palace. Ugaritic texts attest to grain payment tithes to the royal storehouses being made from villagers rather than individuals. No texts suggest a tithe of booty taken in battle. The question then is whether the tithe was paid to Melchizedek in his role as priest, thereby indirectly to the god El Elyon, or in his role as king, tribute and acknowledgement of his political position. Hittite treaties did not require vassals fighting on the suzerain's behalf to give the suzerain a share of their take, but allowed them to keep captives and booty, though the land remained in possession of the suzerain, which is also the word for lord, I guess. In light of all of this information, Abram's payment of a tithe to Melchizedek stands as unique, both in the Bible and the ancient Near East. And then the last section of notes is about Abram accepting nothing. So, verse 23, where he says he will accept nothing belonging to you and not even a shoelace, which is kind of funny in my opinion. Though it seems likely that the armies of the east did not traverse the territory west of the Jordan, they had come into possession of much land in the region by virtue of conquest. Abram's defeat of them would have theoretically given him possession of that land. However, its boundaries would be drawn. This right has suddenly made him a political power to be reckoned with and explains Melchizedek's overtures. Abram, instead of exerting his newfound political leverage, relinquishes any and all claims to the land, claiming that he is under oath to Yahweh, who he identifies with El Elyon, not to profit from military action. This claim may have prompted the formation of a document to formalize the terms, which may in turn have served as the source for the material in this chapter. So interesting. It sounds like because Abram was such a badass, like he had rights to all those lands, but he's like, yeah, you could have it. God tell me no.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's like, I don't know, Rambo or what's another big hero?
Um, uh, I don't
Like
know.
if we were to borrow from Greek, he'd be like Hercules, except not a half god, just a mortal backed by God, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So the next chapter is chapter 15, the Lord's covenant with Abram. Oh, wait a second. Before we get into that, I turned the page in my book, and there's like this 2-page explanation of Genesis chapter 14 and ancient history. I guess we should cover that first. Wow, this is going to be a long read. You ready?
Oh, am I doing it?
No, you can't do
Hold
it
on.
because I have the book.
Oh, you're okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Yes, I'm
No
ready.
worries.
Do it. Do it.
I'll go back a page. That way you see chapter 14 stuff. Okay, so this is a two-page segment about Genesis 14 and ancient history. Genesis 14 theoretically offers the best chance of placing the patriarchal narratives in the framework of the ancient Near East historically and chronologically. Unfortunately, details continue to give a mixed picture and connections elude us. None of the kings of the East mentioned in chapter 14, verse 1 is clearly attested in ancient literature. The issues concerning their identities are as follows. So I'll scroll up to the verse 1 because that was a long list of a bunch of people. Okay, so we got Amraphel, king of Shinar. Amraphel is a Semitic name that has many possible connections to names known from the ancient Near East. Both Amar, element, and the APL. Oh, I guess these are like the syllables. So both the Amar syllable element and the APL apple, apple, I don't know, element occur in personal names from Amraphel. It says APL, so I'm getting confused. Shinar refers to the southern Mesopotamian plains, better known as Sumer. During the early part of the second millennium BC, southern Mesopotamia was characterized by independent city-states. Well, that part makes sense. And then the next section is covering Arioch, king of Elasar. One name from the second millennium BC similar to this one is Zimri Lim's subordinate, Ariwook, from the 18th century BC Mari archives. 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 I can read. A city named Ilansura is also known from those texts in the vicinity of Shubat and Lille, north of Mari, though it does not seem prominent enough to figure here. Others have noticed the vague similarity to Larsa, a prominent city-state in Mesopotamia during the first half of the second millennium BC. So these are just wild guesses, I guess. Next one is Kedorlaomer, king of Elam. So the king of Elam, because I'm not saying his name again, appears to be the head of the coalition. The first part of the name is a common element in Elamite royal names, compared to Kutir Nahunte, who ruled during the Old Babylonian period in the 18th century BC. Nahunte is the name of an Elamite deity, as is Lagamar, represented in the Hebrew word Leomer. Oh. Though the two elements of Kerdor Leomer, and then it has in parentheses, which would equal Kutir Lagamar, are thus attested as authentic so far that the combination is not known among the Elamite royal names. Elam is the usual name for the region that in this period comprised all the land east of Mesopotamia from the Caspian Sea to the Persian Gulf or modern Iran. In the first several centuries of the second millennium BC, Elam was involved in international politics in Mesopotamia and the West, but no information suggests the Elamites controlled any section of Palestine. Then we're going on to the title king of Goyim. Goyim, which is Hebrew for nations, is the most vague but is generally associated by commentators with the Hittites, located in the eastern section of the present-day Turkey. Mostly because the king's name, title, is easily associated with Tudhalia, a common Hittite royal name. The earliest occurrence of this name for a ruler, however, is about 1400 BC, far too late to match this context. Furthermore, the names of Hittite kings as early as mid 18th century BC are known, and none of them bears any resemblance to title. As a reference to a group of people, goyim could be handled in a number of different ways. One option is that it reflects how the population of Anatolia called themselves, people from the land of Hatti. I'm assuming it's Hatti. A second option is that it should be considered a way to refer to a coalition of barbaric peoples, like the Akkadian designation Uman Manda, a term associated with the Gutians who overran Mesopotamia at the end of the dynasty of Akkad toward the end of the 3rd millennium BC. Manda continues to be used as a reference to enemies of the Hittites and the Babylonians in the mid 2nd millennium BC. The trouble with this interpretation is that the Manda could not likely be involved in a large formal coalition of nations. None of these options offer clarification of this king's identity. So that's all about the title king of Goyim. Or is it Tidal? Anyway, while there were many periods in the first half of the 2nd millennium BC when the Elamites were closely associated with the powers in Mesopotamia, it is more difficult to bring the Hittites into the picture. And it should be noted, we are not even sure the Hittites are involved here. We do know that Assyrian merchants had a trading colony in the Hittite region, and one of the key trade items was tin from Elam. But there is no indication of joint military ventures. Early Hittite history is sketchy as well, and we have little information about where they came from or precisely when they moved into Anatolia. None of the known empires or major military coalitions from Mesopotamia is known to have made forays into the southern Levant or Canaan at any time during the 2nd millennium BC. Likewise, even the cities of the plain from Genesis 13 themselves are not yet attested. The association of Sodom and Gomorrah with Zor from chapter 14 verses 2 and 8, and the bitumen pits in the valley of Siddim both point to the southern end of the Dead Sea as the most likely location of these cities. Arguments for their identification with the north end are based on the distance to travel from Hebron, which is 18 miles or 30 kilometers versus 40 miles to the southern location, and the mention of the plain of Jordan in Genesis 13. Excuse me, getting to the end here. The southern location enjoys stronger biblical support as well as the support of earliest extra-biblical traditions. There are 5 sites of early Bronze Age cities on the southeast plain of the Dead Sea. These demonstrate that fairly large populations existed there in the 3rd millennium BC. From north to south, they are, oh my goodness, Bab ed Dra, which could be Sodom, Numaira, which could be Gomorrah, and Safi, which is Zor. Thaifa and Khanazir, with the last being about 20 miles from the first. Only Bab Edra and Numaira have been excavated extensively, and the destruction of these cities by fire has been set by archaeologists at about 2350 BC, seemingly too early for Abraham. The chronological reckoning of this period is difficult. The route described in Genesis 14 verses 5 through 10, I don't have all that showing. There. Judging, let's see, where am I at? I lost my place. Okay, I found it. Represents a straightforward march through the land going south on the main route through Transjordan to Tamar, and from there north to the cities of the plain in the vicinity of the Dead Sea. Ashtaroth, from verse 5, was the capital of the region just east of the Sea of Galilee and was home to people known as the Rephaim. Little is known of the Rephaim as an ethnic group, though the same term is used in other places both in and out of the Bible as a reference to the heroic dead. Zuzites, Emites, and Horites, judging by the city, which is from verses 5 through 6, judging by the cities identified with them, are the inhabitants of the Transjordan in the regions eventually occupied by the Ammonites, Moabites, and Edomites, respectively. Ham is located in northern Gilead and Shaveh, and also known as Kiriathaim, was in Reubenite territory when the land was divided among the tribes, which will be covered in, I think that's Joshua, but I'm not sure. El Paran, from verse 6, should probably be equated with Eleth or at the tip of the Gulf of Aqaba. The Amalekites are engaged at Kadesh Barnea, um, otherwise known as in Mishpat, from verse 7, located in the northeastern Sinai Peninsula near the southwestern extremity of Canaan, about 50 miles southwest of Beersheba. It is identified with Wadi el Ain near Ain el Kudairat and boasts one of the most productive water sources in the region in its oasis. Finally, the Amorites are met at Hazazon Tamar from verse 7, um, which they identify it with En Gedi, halfway up the western shore of the Dead Sea. The association with En Gedi is problematic if the cities of the plain are along the southeastern rim of the Dead Sea, since the itinerary then requires significant retracing of steps. No known routes travel the western bank of the Dead Sea to En Gedi. It is difficult to imagine what route would have taken the armies of the east through Dan from verse 14 if they were traveling from the cities of the plain. The only route that would take them through Dan proceeds north along the spine of hills through Jerusalem, Shechem, and Hazor, and there is no indication that they were that far west or had any reason to do so. Thus, it was most likely Abram and his allies who traveled the route through Dan rather than the armies, as they tried to cut off armies traveling by the king's highway. Dan is mentioned not as the place where Abram catches them, but as a marker that he's leaving the land. The only other alternative to maintain that whole region was different at the I am sorry. I'm tripping over my words. The only other alternative is to maintain that the whole region was different at this time before the destruction in this region in Genesis 19. Oh, we'll discover that later. Consequently, though, many authentic features characterize this narrative. No ready links to the known history are currently possible. I was gonna say, like, all this stuff, what if the region had actually physically changed between then and now? But that is the end of that section that's trying to explain the layout of all those cities and kings. That was kind of hard to
Yeah,
digest.
it was. It was very um detailed.
Yeah. Can I get you to take over basic Bible verse reading again? My throat needs a break.
Oh no. Good
Uh,
luck, everybody.
I don't know. They need luck through me with me too.
All right, so the Lord's covenant with Abram. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I'm your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him, This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abram Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of uh how do you say that? Chaldeans?
Chaldeans.
Chaldeans. Oh, I'm sorry. Um,
Chaldeans.
yeah. What am I doing? Who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it? But Abraham said, I keep saying Abraham, but Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all of these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. Why? I don't understand, but why? But I
I don't
will
know.
punish the nation, but I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the fourth generation, your descendants will, excuse me, come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On the day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river of the Euphrates, the land of the Canaanites,
Oh my gosh.
the Kenizzites, I don't know, the Kedmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Raphaites. Amortes. Why is it funny?
Because you struggle too. I'm not the only one who
They,
suffers.
well, they're crazy. Uh, the Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. Ugh. This
I
is
think that,
why people struggle with Bible. All
yeah,
right, let's.
that's the end of the chapter. Yeah, I might
Phew.
have to cut it off after this because it is hard to keep speaking.
Yeah.
All right, so the first set of notes on chapter 15 covers verse 1 about the
Mhm.
vision. So visions may be either visual or auditory and are not the same as dreams, and that one does not have to be asleep to experience a vision. God used visions to communicate to people. They constitute a more aggressive form of communication than dreams. In contrast to this one, visions in the Old Testament were typically given to prophets in order to communicate oracles or messages that were to be delivered to the people. They may involve natural or supernatural settings, and the individual having the vision may be either an observer or a participant. Besides the category of dream in the ancient Near East, there are waking dreams. But these are the dreams one has when half awake in the morning, not like biblical visions. The closest thing to biblical visions are the oracular. Oh, I gotta turn 2 pages. Decisions seen when in a semi comatose state or trance. The idea of seeing an oracular decision makes sense both in the context of this chapter, where Abram asks an oracular question, and in the context of the prophets, where messages emerge from the visions. As in the Old Testament, these visions are distinct from dreams but can be communicated in dreams. Okay. So covering verse 3, when he talks about having no children and that he would appoint a servant as an heir. Besides today's practice in which children are adopted to provide for the child, the ancient Near East practice sometimes involved adopting an adult for the purpose of providing for the parents. Interesting. Through adoption, the parents would through adoption, the parents vouchsafed an heir to keep property and possessions intact and procured someone to care for them in old age. In these cases, a trusted slave was adopted as a son. Despite the attestation of this practice, information is lacking here to suggest that Abram has actually adopted Eliezer. Another possibility is that Abram simply sees this as his only option at the moment. So that's all for the individual verses. There's coverage over ratifying the covenant, which covers verses 9 through 21. Let's see if I have enough screen space. Oh, that's most of it. So, controversy remains about what kind of ceremony is carried out in verses 9 through 21. What or whom do the pieces represent? Possibilities are sacrifice for oath, God if he reneges, nations already as good as dead, Israelites in slavery. But we don't know. Whom do the birds of prey represent?
Yeah, that's what I
Nations?
was wondering.
Yeah. Birds of prey. Oh, that he shoot off, right? Yeah. I was trying to remember where that was from. So who do the birds of prey represent? Could they be nations seeking to seize the available land, another like in chapter 14 with all the warring city-states, or to plunder Israel? Whom do the implements represent? Could they be God and or Abram? These issues cannot currently be resolved, but a few observations can help identify some of the possible connections with the ancient world. Before we look at the options, a word is in order about what this is not. Number 1, this is not a sacrifice. There is no altar, no offering of the animals to deity, and no ritual with the carcasses, the meat or the blood. Number 2, it is not a divination. The entrails are not examined and no meal is offered to deity. And number 3, this is not an incantation. No words are spoken to accompany the ritual, and no efficacy is sought. Abram is asleep. The remaining options are based on where animals are ritually slaughtered in the ancient world when it is not for the purposes of sacrifice, divination, or incantation. Option 1, a covenant ceremony, or more specifically, a royal land grant ceremony. In this case, the animals typically are understood as substituting for participants or for proclaiming a self-curse if the stipulations are violated. The examples of the slaughter of the animals in such ceremonies, but not for sacrificial purposes, are numerous. In tablets from Alalak, the throat of a lamb is slit in connection to a deed executed between Abba El and Yarimlin. In a Mari text, the head of a donkey is cut off when sealing a formal agreement. This is crazy. In an Aramaic treaty of Sephir, a calf is cut in two with the explicit statement that such will be the fate of the one who breaks the treaty. In Neo-Assyrian literature, the head of a spring lamb is cut off in a treaty between Ashurnariri V and Mati Ilu, not for sacrifice but explicitly as an example of punishment. The strength of these examples lies in the contextual connection to the covenant. The weakness is that only one animal is killed in these examples, and there is no passing through the pieces and no torch and fire pot. Furthermore, there are significant limitations regarding the efficacy of a divine self-curse. So now option 2, purification. The torch from verse 17. So let's scroll down. The blazing torch is a portable handheld object for bringing light. The smoking fire pot can refer to a number of different vessels used to heat things, such as an oven for food or a kiln for pottery. Here the two items are generally assumed to be associated with God, but need not be symbolic representations of him. These implements are occasionally used symbolically to represent deities in ancient Near Eastern literature, but usually sun gods such as Shamash, or fire gods like Giru, otherwise known as Gibel. Gibel and Kusu are often invoked together as divine torch and censer in the wide range of cultic ceremonies for purification. Abram would have probably been familiar with the role of Gibel and Kusu in purification rituals, so that function would be plausibly communicated to him by the presence of these implements. Yet in a purification role, neither the torch nor the censer ever pass between the pieces of cut-up animals in the literature available to us. Further, weakness is in the fact that Yahweh doesn't need purification, and Abram is a spectator, not a participant. So neither does he. In the Mesopotamian hymn to Gibel, the torch, the god purifies the objects used in the ritual, but the only objects in the ritual in Genesis 15 are the dead animals, and it's difficult to understand why they would need to be purified. Option 3, confirming signs related to the promise of what will be done to the nations. Oh, that was a period. So confirming signs related to the promise of what will be done to the nations. In incantation seeking to rid a person of the consequences of offense, the torch and oven are two in a series of objects that can serve as confirmatory signs. The same incantation series also occasionally speaks of the person who is swearing an oath in connection with their participation in the incantation as holding an implement of light and or heat. That was a long sentence. The strength of this option is that it best fits the context of land promise. The problem is that it offers little connection to the cutting up of the animals. The parts of the animals would refer to the nations to be dispossessed. The only example of ritual participants passing between the pieces of several cut-up animals occurs in a Hittite military ritual. In response to their army's defeat, several animals are cut in half, such as goat, puppy, piglet, as well as a human. Ew, this is barbaric. and the army passes through the parts on their way to sprinkling themselves with water from the river to purify themselves. The idea is that this will ensure a better outcome next time. As with a Khan story or a Chan story in either this is Joshua or Josiah, I'm not sure which. They fear that some offense of the soldiers has caused them to be defeated. The obvious problem is that the context of Hittite ritual has no similarity to the context in Genesis chapter 15. In summary, the torch and censer figure frequently in a variety of Mesopotamian ritual contexts, and multiple examples can be found of rituals that involve passing through the pieces of a single animal, but these two elements never occur together. There are plenty of examples of oaths with division of animals, but never passing through the pieces. There are plenty of examples with self-curse, but never by a deity. It is therefore difficult to combine all of the elements from the context of Genesis 15 into a bona fide ritual assemblage. The context refers to a covenant, and therefore an oath by Yahweh could easily be involved. If there is purification, it would have to be purification of the ritual or its setting, for neither Abram nor Yahweh require purification. Since the pieces cannot represent self-curse, the only other ready option is that they represent the nations, but it's hard to imagine in that case what the force of the ritual is. So, all that tells me is that people have been scratching their heads over what all this ritualistic um, animal thing is about.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of not sounding too great, I was thinking, what is this? Why are they murdering things or murdering animals
Yeah,
to
and
it seems like opposite of what God would want, isn't God? I don't know. I just don't picture it just doesn't match to me. It's just weird. I don't
I know,
understand
like
it.
Old Testament God stuff is a lot more barbaric than New Testament stuff. Like it used to be if like you would sacrifice a lamb. Now this is going by my memory, so take that for what it's worth. But it used to be like if you committed a crime or some kind of sin against God, you would sacrifice a lamb in repentance.
Yeah.
And like whatever lamb you sacrificed, it would have to be a good one. You couldn't just give him like the runt of your herd or something that was already sickly. You had to sacrifice this lamb that was of great value to you. So it would be like, the one that would be the tastiest or the one that would be of your breeding stock.
So their value was so high, that's why that was chosen as a sacrifice and not like gold or something.
Yeah.
Like yeah, because I really was wondering about that. I'm like, why is there so much uh bloody sacrifices, cutting things in half and then putting them out, and it just sounds
Yeah, I
like
don't know.
Hellraiser or something.
Yeah, no, it sounds gross and weird and
Yeah,
like, okay, what are you all psychopaths? But there's supposed to
you're
be a
right.
method to the madness.
Yes,
I didn't glean much of the method, especially like the notes didn't clarify anything other than these were similar rituals, but we can't actually pin it to any of those meanings. So it's kind of interesting and still a mystery.
giving up something that's worth a lot to you to prove your allegiance, I guess.
Yeah. Well, like that the lamb sacrifice type thing, like that's more explicitly laid out, but this one it seems like the scholars couldn't figure it out either
Mhm.
because there were too
Mhm.
many overlapping things and some of it didn't match context of the rituals for the that were done that were similar. So maybe it was
Yeah.
just a very unique, like it's just kind of similar to that stuff. You're used to it. I'll just have you do that, and maybe this is representation. It's almost like You know what it reminds me of?
Metaphors
Yeah,
like
metaphors, but it also reminds me of like those affirmations that people have you do, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be successful and
I don't know about
build a
where do you see
business.
that?
I mean, the notes talked about how the cut up animals could be the enemy nations. Let me get back to it. Which page was that?
Oh, I
It
thought
got
you were saying like they were a metaphor, like the snake wasn't a real snake, it was just a metaphor in
no,
gardening. Or the
no.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like
You're
it
saying
says,
like,
option three, confirming signs related to the promise of what will be done to the nations. Like if the animals represent the other nations and they're basically being cut in half and passed
mhm,
through, like maybe it's like some kind of affirmation type ritual where in the
yeah.
modern day you have your chance, like, yeah, I'm gonna make a lot of money and I'm gonna find love, and you just keep doing that. Like maybe it's got that kind of value to it, but I don't know. I'm just taking wild guesses because apparently nobody
Well,
knows.
hopefully, maybe someone will one day listen to this podcast and they will give a comment that helps us.
And be like, shut up, noobs, you're saying it all wrong. It was this. Yes, do that.
Yeah,
We're trying to
uh,
learn. Help us learn.
yeah, help us learn. Don't be mean to us in the comments.
Well, at least not too mean.
Yeah, you could be an acceptable level of mean. Just not,
Exactly.
it's not too awfully mean.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Like, please don't tell us to kill ourselves. That's not very Christian of you.
Oh no, why'd you say that? Now we're gonna get banned on every platform.
Are we? I don't know.
You're not
But
allowed to say those words. No! We're
don't
banned
delete
for life.
ourselves. No, it's at the end. Who
Yes.
cares? It's fine. We'll be okay. If we're banned, then I guess we'll just have to keep our Bible study to ourselves, and nobody else can try to learn with us.
Yeah, it's so overly censored that you have to use made up words for the actual word to get across the point that you're trying to make that is not a harmful point. It's so
So
crazy.
so please don't tell us to critically fail ourselves.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I can't wait till the next Bible study. It's always a joy.
Yeah, trying to puzzle through this stuff. Like I'm still kind of. I feel like my brain was used as soup, put in the
Yeah, but
blender.
it's fun to make soup sometimes. I had fun making soup. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I guess unless you have any other thoughts about these two chapters that seem to be quite violent. One is like an epic battle, apparently. Need to get Token to
Yeah,
rewrite that one so that we get all the deets.
I know it's epic and it seems like such a small like I mean this would make an awesome movie.
Yeah,
Where's my movie?
yeah,
And if there is one already, let us know in the chat so we can go watch it because it sounds great.
yeah.
I know there's
Anybody
some
who has
Bible
feedback,
movies out
inform
there.
us. Well, hopefully good
And if
ones.
this isn't a movie, it really should be.
Yeah, that would be an epic movie. It'd be like what is it? Like the Battle of the Two
Mission
Towers, or
Impossible, but
yeah, Mission Impossible. But it also kind of reminds me like the Tolkien, the big armies of orcs versus the small, not necessarily
yes,
scrappy army, but like the underdog. It sounded like Abram was actually an underdog, but maybe not. Maybe he had more people. Whatever it
yeah.
was
I
pretty.
mean, they did make it sound like he was the underdog, and he
Yeah,
came out
get
the,
out,
you know,
badass.
the. Mhm. So yeah, that was fun. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it, and anyone that finds us, we hope you enjoyed it too.
Yes,
And
thank you.
like I said, leave us some infos or say hi in the comments. Thank you. Bye
Right,
for
thanks.
now.
Bye for now. Signing off.